The Outsider's Innovation. The gleaming spires of New Singapore Station pierced the void like crystalline needles, their iridescent surfaces reflecting the light of distant stars. Inside the station's Advanced Propulsion Laboratory, Dr. Sarah Chen stood before the Galactic Confederation's Engineering Council, her hands steady despite the disapproving stares from the assembled aliens. As you can see, she gestured to the holographic display of her ship design. The Earth ship Prometheus incorporates multiple redundant mechanical systems alongside your quantum neural interfaces. The display highlighted a complex network of gears, hydraulics, and manual controls that made several council members shift uncomfortably in their seats. High Engineer Zixtal, his crystalline form catching the light, leaned forward. Dr. Chen, while we appreciate Earth's enthusiasm for joining the Confederation, this design violates every principle of modern spacecraft engineering. Your mechanical backups add unnecessary mass and complexity. Our quantum neural systems have achieved 99.99999% reliability. Sarah nodded, having expected this response. With respect, High Engineer, I've reviewed the battle footage from the Centauri incident. When your ships encountered the gravimetric anomaly, the quantum neural interfaces failed. Every crew member directly connected to their ships suffered severe neural feedback. No backup systems meant no way to regain control. That was an isolated incident. Zixtal's voice carried an edge of irritation. We've since improved our shielding. But you're still relying on a single point of failure, Sarah countered, bringing up another diagram. The Prometheus can function even with total power loss. Every critical system has a mechanical backup that can be operated manually. Yes, it's less elegant than pure quantum neural control, but it's virtually impossible to disable completely. A Meridian counselor, their feathered crest bristling, spoke up. You humans always focus on failure modes. This obsession with preparing for disaster shows a fundamental lack of confidence in your own technology. Sarah smiled slightly. We prepare for failure because we've learned from it. Every backup system in this design exists because something went catastrophically wrong in our past. We've lost good people learning these lessons. Precisely our point, Zixtal interjected. Your species' approach to engineering is built on tragedy and fear. The Confederation has moved beyond such primitive concerns. We design for perfection, not failure. And yet, Sarah's voice remained calm. Your perfect ships still occasionally fail. When they do, everyone aboard dies. Our primitive ships might not be as elegant, but their crews survive. The council chamber fell silent. Sarah could see the mixture of dismissal and reluctant consideration on their alien faces. Finally, Zixtal spoke again. The council will review your submission, Dr. Chen. However, I must be frank. Your design philosophy is fundamentally incompatible with Confederation standards. We cannot compromise our engineering principles to accommodate human paranoia. As Sarah gathered her materials to leave, a junior Meridian engineer approached her. Dr. Chen, they whispered, some of us find your redundancy concepts intriguing. Perhaps we could discuss them privately. Sarah nodded, suppressing a smile. The seeds of doubt had been planted. Whether the council approved her design or not, she'd made them think. And thinking about failure modes was the first step toward preventing them. Back in her lab, Sarah ran another simulation of the Prometheus' systems. The holographic ship sprouted ghostly layers of backup systems, each one ready to take over if the ones above it failed. Her human colleagues called it over-engineering. The Confederation called it primitive. She called it learning from history. A message flashed across her terminal. The council had made their decision. She opened it, already knowing what it would say. The Prometheus project was rejected for fundamental incompatibility with Confederation engineering standards. Sarah closed the message and turned back to her work. The Confederation might not appreciate human engineering principles, but something told her they'd need them someday. When that day came, the Prometheus and her backup systems would be ready. As she refined the design, She thought about Earth's long history of spaceflight. Every disaster, every near miss, every close call had taught them something. The Confederation saw their mechanical backups as a sign of weakness. They didn't understand that acknowledging the possibility of failure wasn't pessimism. It was wisdom. The stars outside her lab window seemed to twinkle in agreement. Humanity's path to the stars hadn't been perfect or elegant, but they'd learned from every mistake. That wisdom, written in blood and sacrifice, wasn't something to be ashamed of. Proving ground. 3 months after the Prometheus project's rejection, Dr. Sarah Chen stood in her lab, watching real-time footage of the Confederation's latest disaster. The holographic display showed the aftermath of another mysterious attack, this time on a civilian transport hub in the Vega sector. The Confederation's sleek ships drifted lifelessly in space, their quantum neural networks completely dead. No casualties this time. The crews had disconnected fast enough, but the ships themselves were useless, reduced to expensive space debris. Dr. Chen, her assistant, Marcus Wong, entered the lab. Emergency meeting called by Admiral Hayes. They're requesting your presence. Sarah nodded, already knowing why. This was the 4th attack in 2 weeks, and each one followed the same pattern. Someone or something was targeting the Confederation's supposedly perfect technology, turning their greatest strength into a catastrophic weakness. The meeting room was packed when she arrived. Admiral Hayes stood at the head of the table, his weathered face grim. Around him sat representatives from both Earth's Space Force and the Confederation. The tension in the room was palpable. Dr. Chen, Hayes nodded to her. I believe you're familiar with High Engineer Zixtal. The crystalline alien sat stiffly in his chair, his earlier arrogance notably diminished. Dr. Chen, he acknowledged. Circumstances have evolved since our last meeting. 12 ships disabled in the past 2 weeks, Hayes began, bringing up a tactical display. No deaths yet, but only because the crews managed to sever their neural connections in time. Whatever this threat is, it's specifically targeting the Confederation's quantum neural interfaces. Sarah studied the attack patterns. The energy signature is unlike anything we've seen before. It's not just disrupting the neural interfaces, it's using them as a conduit to shut down entire ships. Precisely why we're here, Zixtal's voice carried an edge of reluctance. The Confederation requires alternative perspectives on this situation. Sarah raised an eyebrow. You mean you need ships that don't rely entirely on quantum neural interfaces? We need options, Hayes cut in diplomatically. The Prometheus project was rejected, Zixtal interrupted. But perhaps prematurely. Sarah brought up her latest design specifications. I've made some improvements since the rejection. The mechanical backup systems are more streamlined, though they'll still look primitive by Confederation standards. At this point, a Meridian representative spoke up, their feathers ruffled with anxiety. Primitive might be precisely what we need. Our advanced systems are being turned against us. The meeting continued for hours, discussing modifications and implementation strategies. The Confederation representatives struggled with every concession to inferior technology, but fear was a powerful motivator. When your perfect systems become perfect vulnerabilities, even primitive solutions start to look attractive. As the meeting wound down, Zixtal approached Sarah privately. Dr. Chen, I must ask, did you anticipate something like this? Is this why you insisted on mechanical backups? Sarah shook her head. No, but humanity's history taught us that new threats always emerge. The universe has a way of humbling those who think they've achieved perfection. A costly lesson, Zixtal admitted. The Confederation Council has authorized emergency funding for a prototype based on your design. We need it operational as quickly as possible. The basic design is ready, Sarah replied. We can begin construction immediately. But you should know, this ship won't be as smooth or elegant as what you're used to. It'll be sturdy, reliable, and survivable. But it won't win any beauty contests. Beauty is irrelevant if our ships cannot function, Zixtal's crystalline form seemed to dim slightly. "We need vessels that can fight back against this threat." As Sarah left the meeting, she felt no satisfaction in being proven right. The Confederation's pride had cost them precious time, but at least they were finally willing to listen. Now she just had to deliver on her promises. Back in her lab, she began the final modifications to the Prometheus design. The prototype would be humanity's first official contribution to Confederation defense technology. It wouldn't be the most advanced ship in space, but it would be the one still flying when everything else failed. "Ready to make history?" Marcus asked, bringing up the construction schedules. Sarah smiled grimly. "Ready to prove that sometimes the old ways are the best ways. Let's build a ship that can't be outsmarted." Outside her lab window, the stars seemed dimmer than usual, as if sensing the growing threat. But somewhere out there, whatever was attacking the Confederation's ships was about to learn an important lesson. Humans had spent centuries preparing for things to go wrong, and they'd gotten very good at it. Crisis point. The prototype Prometheus hung in space like an angular contradiction to everything the Confederation held dear. Its hull was a patchwork of armor plates and manual access ports, more reminiscent of Earth's early space vessels than the sleek ships of humanity's new allies. Dr. Sarah Chen stood on the bridge, watching her crew run through final systems checks. All mechanical backups responding normally, Marcus reported from the engineering station. Hydraulic controls, manual override systems, and physical emergency protocols all green. "The Confederation observers are requesting an update on our status," Lieutenant Rivera announced from communications. "They seem concerned about our launch delays." Sarah smiled slightly. "Tell them we're running our pre-flight checklist. They'll understand that concept soon enough." The Prometheus had been rushed into service in record time. 3 more Confederation ships had been disabled in the past week alone, and the mysterious attacker was growing bolder. The latest target had been a military patrol vessel, not a civilian transport. "Doctor," Marcus called out, "we're picking up a distress signal. The Confederation battle group in the Arcturus sector is under attack." Sarah's expression hardened. "How many ships?" 5 Confederation vessels against 2 unknown contacts. The energy signature matches our previous encounters. "Time to prove our point," Sarah said. "All hands, battle stations. Lieutenant Rivera, inform Confederation Command that we're moving to assist." The Prometheus's engines roared to life. Actual fusion drives rather than the Confederation's preferred quantum propulsion. The ship accelerated with all the grace of a charging rhinoceros, but it moved. "Unknown vessels detected," Marcus reported as they approached the battle zone. "They're different from anything in our database. Biomechanical, maybe." Through the view screen, Sarah watched 2 massive entities that seemed to exist somewhere between machine and living creature. Their surfaces rippled with patterns of energy that made her eyes hurt to look at. The Confederation ships faced them in perfect formation, their quantum weapons charging. "They're powering up their neural interfaces for a synchronized attack," Marcus warned. "Standard Confederation tactics. Open a channel to the Confederation flagship," Sarah ordered. "Warn them to disengage their neural interfaces immediately." But it was too late. The unknown vessels released pulses of that strange, reality-warping energy. The Confederation ship's perfect formation dissolved into chaos as their neural networks crashed. Emergency disconnection protocols saved most of the crews, but the ships themselves were dead in space. "Confederation vessels have lost all power," Marcus reported grimly. "Their crews are alive but trapped. The enemy ships are moving to finish them off." Sarah took a deep breath. "All right, Prometheus. Time to show them what primitive technology can do. Helm, full power to engines. Weapons, prepare conventional armaments. Let's introduce ourselves." The Prometheus charged into battle, its conventional weapons blazing. The enemy vessels seemed momentarily confused by the approach of this ungainly new challenger. Their energy weapons lashed out, trying to disable the Prometheus as they had the Confederation ships. "Direct hit to our systems," Marcus called out. Neural interface is down. Backup hydraulics engaging. Manual controls responding normally. We're still in the fight. Sarah allowed herself a grim smile. Return fire. All batteries. Let's see how they like dealing with something they can't just switch off. The Prometheus's kinetic weapons struck home. Physical projectiles accelerated to relativistic speeds. The enemy vessel's energy shields struggled against this primitive but effective assault. They weren't used to dealing with weapons that didn't rely on quantum mechanics or neural links. They're adjusting their tactics, Marcus warned, attempting to target our power systems directly. Switch to backup generators, Sarah ordered. Divert all non-essential power to weapons. Show them what happens when you fight a ship that's built to keep fighting. The battle raged on, a testament to the effectiveness of reliable, redundant systems. Every time the enemy disabled one of the Prometheus's systems, a backup kicked in. When the main weapons went down, they switched to emergency batteries. When those failed, they still had compressed gas systems for point defense. The enemy vessels, for all their advanced technology, seemed increasingly frustrated by their inability to completely disable this stubborn human ship. Their attacks grew more frantic, less coordinated. Their energy emissions are becoming erratic, Marcus reported. I think we're actually wearing them down. Sarah nodded. Target their observed weak points. All remaining weapons, coordinate fire. Let's finish this. The Prometheus's final barrage struck home. The enemy vessels, their sophisticated defenses finally overwhelmed by the relentless assault of primitive weapons, began to break apart. Their biomechanical forms writhed in space before finally going dark. As the threat disappeared, Sarah looked at the disabled Confederation ships around them. Begin rescue operations. Let's show them that human engineering isn't just about surviving. It's about helping others survive too. As the Prometheus moved to assist the stranded Confederation crews, Sarah couldn't help but think about the council meeting where they'd dismissed her design. Sometimes the best technology wasn't the most advanced, it was the most reliable. Dr. Chen, Marcus called out, we're receiving a transmission from High Engineer Zixtal's vessel. They're requesting engineering specifications for our backup systems. Sarah smiled. Send them everything. It's time the Confederation learned that preparing for failure isn't a weakness. It's the strongest form of wisdom we have. The human element. The observation deck of New Singapore Station hummed with activity as engineers from a dozen species pored over holographic displays of the Prometheus's systems. Dr. Sarah Chen watched with quiet amusement as a group of Meridian engineers debated the merits of manual hydraulic controls with several crystalline Zixtal technicians. I never thought I'd see the day, Marcus commented, joining her at the window. 3 different Confederation species arguing over who gets to install mechanical backup systems first. The victory of the Prometheus had sent shockwaves through the Confederation's engineering community. The ship that they had dismissed as primitive had succeeded where their most advanced vessels had failed. Now, everyone wanted to understand how. Dr. Chen, High Engineer Zixtal approached, his crystalline form somehow managing to look both authoritative and humbled. The Council requests your presence. There are matters to discuss. The Council chamber felt different this time. Gone was the barely concealed disdain. Instead, Sarah faced a group of beings who had learned a costly lesson about the dangers of technological orthodoxy. The performance of the Prometheus has forced us to reevaluate many of our assumptions. The Council leader began. We now understand that our pursuit of perfect systems left us vulnerable to catastrophic failure. What we don't understand, another council member added, is how your species anticipated this vulnerability. How did you know to build such comprehensive backup systems? Sarah considered her response carefully. We didn't anticipate this specific threat. We just learned, through centuries of spaceflight, that new threats always emerge. Our backup systems exist because we accept that nothing is perfect, not even our own technology. But this approach seems so inefficient, a Meridian counselor objected. maintaining multiple redundant systems, training crews to operate manual controls. Efficiency isn't everything, Sarah countered. The most efficient system is also the most vulnerable to disruption. Human engineering philosophy values resilience over efficiency. We'd rather have systems that work at 80% capacity than systems that work at 100% until they suddenly don't work at all. The council chamber fell silent as they considered this. Finally, Zixtal spoke up. The Confederation has authorized a major refit of our fleet. We want to incorporate your backup systems into our existing vessels. But we need guidance. Sarah smiled. You need humans to teach you how to think like engineers who expect things to go wrong. Yes, Zixtal admitted. Our species have evolved different approaches to technology. We pursued perfection. You pursued survival. Recent events have shown which approach is more valuable in a crisis. Then I have a proposal, Sarah said, bringing up a holographic display. A joint engineering program. We'll teach you our redundancy protocols, our manual systems, our failure mode engineering. In return, we learn about your advanced technology. Together, we build ships that combine the best of both approaches. The council members exchanged glances. This would require significant changes to our engineering doctrine, the council leader noted. Many will resist such a fundamental shift in our approach. Sarah smiled. You need humans to teach you how to think like engineers who expect things to go wrong. Yes, Zixtal admitted. Our species have evolved different approaches to technology. We pursued perfection. You pursued survival. Recent events have shown which approach is more valuable in a crisis. Then I have a proposal, Sarah said, bringing up a holographic display. A joint engineering program. We'll teach you our redundancy protocols, our manual systems, our failure mode engineering. In return, we learn about your advanced technology. Together, we build ships that combine the best of both approaches. The council members exchanged glances. This would require significant changes to our engineering doctrine, the council leader noted. Many will resist such a fundamental shift in our approach. Change is hard, Sarah acknowledged. But not changing can be fatal. The enemy we faced might be defeated, but there will be others. The universe has a way of finding new ways to kill us. Your species has a rather pessimistic outlook, a Meridian observed. We prefer to call it pragmatic, Sarah corrected. We plan for the worst while hoping for the best. It's kept us alive so far. The council deliberated briefly before reaching a decision. Your proposal is accepted, Dr. Chen. The Confederation will establish a joint engineering initiative under your leadership. We must evolve, or we risk extinction. As Sarah left the council chamber, she found Marcus waiting outside. How did it go? We're about to teach the most advanced civilization in known space how to use wrenches, she replied with a smile. It's going to be interesting. Over the next few weeks, the station became a hub of unprecedented cooperation. Confederation engineers learned the value of manual overrides and redundant systems, while human engineers studied quantum neural interfaces and advanced propulsion technology. Together, they began designing a new generation of ships that would be both advanced and resilient. It's remarkable, Zixtal commented one day, watching a human engineer teach a group of his people how to repair a hydraulic system. We thought we had moved beyond the need for such physical interactions with our technology. We'd forgot that sometimes the simplest solutions are the most reliable. Sarah nodded. That's the human element. We never forgot that at the end of the day, it's not about having the most advanced technology. It's about having technology you can rely on when everything goes wrong. The stars outside seemed brighter somehow, as if approving of this new partnership between human practicality and Confederation advancement. Together, they were building something new. A future where progress didn't mean abandoning the lessons of the past. Paradigm shift. 1 year after the Prometheus incident, the shipyards around New Singapore Station bustled with unprecedented activity. Dr. Sarah Chen stood at the observation window of the new Joint Engineering Academy, watching as the first vessel of the Confederation's reformed fleet took shape. "The Harmony," Marcus said, joining her at the window. "First of her class. Quantum neural interfaces with full mechanical redundancy. The perfect fusion of human reliability and Confederation advancement." The ship under construction bore little resemblance to either the utilitarian Prometheus or the sleek Confederation vessels of the past. Its design represented something entirely new, a synthesis of both engineering philosophies. Administrator Chen, a young Zixtal engineer, approached, clutching a datapad. "The latest simulation results are ready for your review." Sarah smiled at her new title. The Joint Engineering Academy had been her idea, a place where human and Confederation engineers could learn from each other. Now she oversaw the training of the next generation of spacecraft designers. "Tell me," she asked the young engineer, "what's the first rule of spacecraft design?" "Plan for failure," the crystalline being replied without hesitation. "Design not just for optimal performance, but for graceful degradation when systems are compromised." "And the second rule?" "The simplest solution that works is often the best solution," the engineer recited. "Complexity increases points of failure." Sarah nodded approvingly. The Confederation's engineers were learning, adapting their pursuit of perfection with a healthy dose of human pragmatism. Meanwhile, human engineers were pushing the boundaries of what was possible with Confederation technology, finding ways to make advanced systems more resilient. High Engineer Zixtal materialized from a quantum transport pad nearby. "The Council's annual review is complete," he announced. "The Joint Engineering Initiative has exceeded all expectations. The retrofit program is ahead of schedule, and preliminary tests of the new hybrid systems are showing remarkable results." "The simplest solution that works is often the best solution," the engineer recited. "Complexity increases points of failure." Sarah nodded approvingly. The Confederation's engineers were learning, adapting their pursuit of perfection with a healthy dose of human pragmatism. Meanwhile, human engineers were pushing the boundaries of what was possible with Confederation technology, finding ways to make advanced systems more resilient. High Engineer Zixtal materialized from a quantum transport pad nearby. "The Council's annual review is complete," he announced. "The Joint Engineering Initiative has exceeded all expectations. The retrofit program is ahead of schedule, and preliminary tests of the new hybrid systems are showing remarkable results." "Any more signs of our biomechanical friends?" Sarah asked. "None since the Prometheus encounter," Zixtal confirmed. "But thanks to your influence, we're better prepared if they return. Every ship in the fleet now has multiple layers of redundancy. No single point of failure can disable them completely." Sarah turned back to the window, watching as construction drones swarmed around the Harmony. "It's not just about being prepared for that specific threat. It's about being prepared for the unknown." "A concept we should have grasped sooner," Zixtal admitted. "We thought advancement meant leaving the past behind. You showed us that true progress means building upon it." A group of students passed by. Humans, Zixtal, Meridians, and other species, all engaged in animated discussion about engineering principles. They represented the future, a generation that would combine the best aspects of all their civilization's approaches to technology. "The Harmony begins her space trials next week," Marcus reported, checking his datapad. "Want to be there for the launch?" "Wouldn't miss it," Sarah replied. "It's not every day you see the future take flight." The launch ceremony was attended by representatives from every Confederation species. As the Harmony's engines ignited, a hybrid system combining quantum propulsion with conventional fusion drives, Sarah felt a sense of pride that went beyond personal vindication. "Beautiful, isn't she?" a Meridian Council member commented. "Not despite her redundancies and backup systems, but because of them. There's elegance and reliability." The Harmony rose gracefully from her berth, her hull gleaming in the starlight. She represented more than just a new class of starship. She was a symbol of how different civilizations could learn from each other, how progress didn't have to mean abandoning wisdom earned through experience. The Confederation's philosophers are still debating the implications, Zixtal noted. Your human approach to engineering has sparked quite the discussion about the nature of progress itself. Sarah watched as the Harmony executed her first maneuvers, demonstrating the precision of Confederation technology alongside the resilience of human design principles. Sometimes the best way forward is to remember where you've been. As the ceremony concluded, Sarah returned to her office at the Academy. On her wall hung two images, a technical diagram of the original Prometheus and an artist's rendering of the Harmony. Together, they told the story of how humanity's primitive wisdom had transformed the most advanced civilization in known space. Professor, a student called from the doorway, one of her first graduates, now a senior engineer. The next class is asking about the Prometheus incident. Would you tell them the story? Sarah smiled. The story had become something of a legend in the Academy, a reminder that true innovation meant balancing advancement with reliability, ambition with wisdom. Of course, she said, rising from her desk. They should know how humanity taught the stars that sometimes the old ways are the best ways. The legacy of the Prometheus lived on, not just in the hybrid ships now emerging from shipyards across Confederation space, but in a new philosophy of engineering that valued both innovation and reliability. Humanity had earned its place among the stars not by abandoning its hard-earned wisdom, but by showing that true progress meant learning from the past while reaching for the future.